I don't actually regret getting C2 Furina, and I know that's kind of a weird way to start an argument about how I don't think most people should get C2 Furina. Like, you probably shouldn't get C2 Furina. The core reason for that, and you could basically stop watching right after this, is that the way that most players play with Furina, I don't think will actually utilize it meaningfully. It's a constellation that makes you think it's doing more than it is doing in many circumstances that you use Furina in. And like, I'm not saying it's not a good constellation, by the way. Like, it's definitely one of the better constellations in the game, especially if you really try to abuse it. But, you know, if Furina is one of your favorite characters and, you know, you want to just make teams using Furina slightly better in some way or another, and because she's, like, used in so many different teams, that means you're improving so many other teams' damage, like, you know, don't let me stop you from getting it, right? I want to make this video as, like, you know, encouraging you to just think about the fact that, hey, maybe you need your Primogems to save for the Kave rerun that happens once every 70 years. Anywho's, like, Furina's a really good character, right? Like, she even makes Kave functional. Well, she and Cloud Retainer makes Kave functional, which kind of makes any character functional. But, you know, ignore that. The core thing with Furina, right? Let me go find cooking pot. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to have Furina's summons whack this thing. And it's going to drain our HP, right? So Furina's whole thing, the whole thing that makes her useful, and there's actually, you know, I'm gonna have to explain a baseline of her kit, I guess, because a lot of people don't even understand this. Her burst is what actually makes her make sense. For those that don't know, when you use her burst, it basically starts tracking HP changes, right? So you do that, and then you can see little people jump up and down. That's when you reach thresholds of her fanfare, and as you're draining HP, right, there's the last threshold for getting max fanfare. So yeah, Furina's burst, right, tracks HP changing, gives you damage bonus for the whole team, which is nice, because, you know, a lot of characters like damage bonus. And depending on how, you know, fast your teammates' HP changed, went up and went down, you know, determines how fast you can get damage bonus going. And that's what makes C2 seem attractive, right? Because it increases the rate at which you get fanfare very quickly, and then when you get any additional fanfare, it gives Furina a whole whack ton of HP. And the thing with the HP, to be completely honest, is that it's not that relevant. You'll see her HP be really big and you'll be like, wow, she's an HP skiller, it makes her do a lot of damage. Except in practice, Furina's not usually the one contributing a majority of your team's damage. Furina's relative damage contribution, let's say it's like 25% of the team's damage is Furina's damage. It's not insignificant, right? The HP you gain from Furina C2 might increase her own personal damage by, say, 20%. I think that's the general amount it can, but the amount it will actually benefit your Furina is variable depending on how much you actually, like, overcap the fanfare, so it's a big ol', it depends, right? But in most circumstances, and this is how most people will actually end up using Furina, a 20% DPS upgrade to a unit that's doing 25% of the team damage is not a 20% team DPS upgrade, right? That's more like maybe a 5% team DPS upgrade. It's not nothing, right? And maybe if you're playing Kave, that might be the difference maker between you being able to clear counter or not, because it's Kave. And the reason that the fanfare increase isn't that relevant is because of the fact that most of the time, when you're playing Furina with C2, you're playing her the same as you would normally, because you want your characters to live. So usually ideal Furina play looks something like this, where your team is at 50% health after a rotation, for example. You use your healer's burst, and wow, look, all the team almost full healed, except for there's a little bit of extra text with Cloud Retainer there. With someone like Jean, it would have just full healed everyone instantly, right? And when all of your characters are at 50% health and then go to 100% health, you can have 300 maximum fanfare, and she gets 1 point of fanfare for each percentage of HP that changes. So essentially what happened there when I used Cloud Retainer's burst, if Furina's burst is going, is we got 200 fanfare as soon as we used her burst. So if Furina's burst was up. The remaining 100 fanfare is gotten very shortly by the fact that Furina's summons will then, you know, attack anything. That is to say, in teams where you're using Furina normally, you end up maxing out... What are you doing, sir? All right, he's trying his best. You end up maxing out Furina's fanfare very fast regardless, right? So in many team contexts, all C2 does is just increase Furina's damage. That's like context like Cloud Retainer. That is context with any team-wide healer, really. All the ideal healers you would use with Furina: Baiju, Jean, Charlotte, Who else is team-wide healer? I don't know. It doesn't matter. You get the point. Team-wide healers are ideal with Furina because your whole team's HP is going down when Furina's draining their HP, and you want to be able to heal them back up so that, you know, you don't switch to your Nahida and her with 10,000 health gets one-shot by, you know, a consecrated beast. Most players with Furina C2 will still want to use, you know, your team-wide healers to keep the team alive, is basically all I'm saying. And in those contexts, Furina C2, the damage gain being faster, the damage bonus from her fanfare generating more, you don't really gain that much from Furina C2 because you're not really gaining fanfare meaningfully faster. C1 actually makes much more of a difference in that regard for like getting some front-loaded damage bonus compared to C2. I think the sensible place to stop if you want to get Furina constellations is C1 because most people will not actually abuse Furina C2 in the ways that it's interesting to use. And there definitely are ways to abuse Furina C2, notably in that you can do Prototype Amber on Nahida. This is really the primary abuse, I would say, for Furina C2. Prototype Amber, I believe at R3 or 4 is when you need. With Furina C2, right, if you do the math of how much fanfare you get with her C2, this weapon alone is enough to get max fanfare. And that's a pretty significant deal. And the reason being is that means you can remove Cloud Retainer here. I don't know, let's say I put it in official, right? I can remove the healer from a Furina team, and Furina C2 can still give me the damage bonus, and all of the damage bonus, notably. That's where Furina C2 is really interesting. But this team becomes so much more fragile. Let's just go to the abyss with this team. I don't know if my Kave actually has artifacts, but, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. So, you know, we'll start doing that. Blam, we'll do that. We'll do this, and then we'll do you, and then we'll start healing from Prototype Amber, right? And then we'll just do Kave things. And I'm pretty sure Kave does not have artifacts. It's fine. This is how you can really abuse Furina C2. It's probably the core way. Not with Kave specifically, but just with Prototype Amber on Nahida, right? But notably what this does is, you know how I just took damage there, right? You have this situation that happens where when you're doing Prototype Amber as your main healer with Furina, and she's still, you know, draining team's HP constantly, and you're taking damage a little bit, you run into the issue pretty quickly of dying. Like, despite... Kave actually has a little bit of nice additional synergy with Furina C2, actually, because he can heal himself a little bit, but you can see everyone else is kind of stuck at half health now. And I can do that. I should have done that after doing that, but whatever, it's probably fine. Oh god, yep, see, took a bunch of damage there, right? And, hey, I can keep on schmacking, since... okay, well, I was trying to focus a little, yep, okay, yep. Honestly, that sufficiently demonstrates my point, I think. I'm not saying I couldn't have played better there, right? Like, that's what's the most fun about Furina C2, honestly, is doing something like this, right? Using non-optimal healers, whether it be your Prototype Amber, whether it be your I don't know, Kuki is probably the best. There she is, right? Kuki is a very single target focused healer, and if you have her on, say, like a Hybrid Bloom build, right? She's not going to heal a ton. Oh, how much is that? 3,000. That's quite a lot. That's a crowned Kuki skill. That is definitely not enough to like get meaningful value out of Furina with Kuki as your main healer. But when you're using Kuki with Furina C2, it absolutely is. But the problem is, again, it's the same thing as Prototype Amber. Your other teammates are going to be pretty squish. Anytime you're really using Furina C2, you are making the team more fragile. From what I understand of how most people play this game, they wouldn't actually enjoy that, right? I don't think that many people would actually enjoy doing shenanigans with Furina C2, making their team really fragile in exchange for having more potential damage potential, right? By not having to slot in like a dedicated team-wide healer. I think most people, when they have Furina C2, are just gonna use the good healers with Furina, like Baiju, like Cloud Retainer, like whoever the heck, right? And hey, I get a bunch of HP, and that just makes Furina do more damage. That's what it's gonna do. It's just gonna make your Furina do more damage for most players. But if you're someone, right, like me, who likes the idea of taking Genshin's combat to its limits, Prototype Amber just enabling, you know, C2 Furina, or to have like healerless teams that get max damage bonus, that is a really significant benefit, a really significant benefit that could be worthwhile to you if you're fine with the fragility. Maybe. Like, you still really gotta consider what other characters might be coming. Like, characters that you might not even know you like because they haven't existed in the game yet, right? In any shape or form. And maybe you're gonna want to pull for them over getting Furina constellations. And honestly, like, for how many Primo Gems, like, I think I had like 50,000 Primo Gems saved for Furina, and that's how I got C2, and why I don't regret it is I didn't have to spend any money for it. I honestly don't use it that much. I really don't abuse it that much. When I do abuse it, I enjoy it. And you know what, let's go back to the Abyss. I want to show one of the strongest teams that I can play to abuse Furina C2. Alright, then the notable thing here when it comes to this is that this is not a C2 Raiden. That's a pretty important differentiator here. Let's see. Okay, let's do this, do that, and then they're already dead. Oops. Side effect of trying to showcase truly abusing constellations on certain characters is that you kill things before you actually get to show off the things you want to do. Alright, do this, do that. Okay, please don't die. I didn't even crit. Oh my god. Raiden. Oh, you know what? This just popped in my head. This card, by the way, with Furina, and this is without Furina C2, just in general with Furina, this Abyss card can be really strong at like allowing you to abuse it to like clear certain chambers. Like, you can absolutely do healerless Furina teams with Furina C0 or C1, and that could help you like clear a really difficult chamber like this floor 12 chamber 1, right, with this card. So like, don't underestimate this card. Sometimes you can use that to selectively help you clear content with Furina. I honestly think that Abyss card is kind of like almost a free Furina C2 on floors that have it, in a sense. It's kind of weird, but you know. Alright, don't die, please. I mean, I did want you to die, but yeah, there you go, 176,000. Actually, I think was lower than I expected. Wow, 189,000. I think I'm going to take this to Chamber 2 to actually like show a sustained rotation, though. I'm going to use this against the Magu Kinky here, because this is a more proper way to showcase this. So, my team's at like half health, but again, because I have like Prototype Amber and Furina C2, this is fine here. We're going to do that, do this, and then we're not going to burst on Raiden here yet, because a lot of the damage here, by the way, if it's not obvious, there's a number of things going on that actually makes why Furina C2 is so strong, but it's in conjunction with all the other things going on I have going on, right? So, yeah, you'll see in a second here. Good, he did that, and then now let's get smacked, and he's almost dead already, and I didn't even see the number. That was a lot of damage, like, without doing a Raiden burst there. And the part of the reason that was doing so well is because I was doing other high investment things in conjunction with Furina C2. It wasn't just Furina C2 doing that, right? So there's the Furina build, it's just a golden troop build. Bennett was on 4-piece instructors for the EM bonus. Nahida notably was C2, so, you know, Nahida C2 in conjunction with, you know, Furina C2 was a significant increase for Raiden. And that was, you know, making it so I kind of almost had C2 Raiden, even though I don't have C2 Raiden, but it's not quite the same. C2 Raiden is stronger than C2 Nahida as far as damage for Raiden goes. But notably, the damage I was doing with Raiden gets significant crits. Like, it's actually made to do a lot of damage, but also a lot of elemental mastery based, like transformer reaction damage. So I was still getting, you know, 18k whatever hyper blooms. And it's because I'm doing shenanigans with Staff of Scarlet Sands with a very high investment build. So like, C2 Furina in that team like makes a notable difference. It makes a notable difference in conjunction with the other high investment things that I already have. And the fragility matters a lot less in that context because I can deal so much damage that it just barely matters, right? But Furina C2 on her own is not really gonna usually make it so, wow, you're instantly doing so much damage that you're completely fine with your team being super fragile. That's kind of what I'm trying to illustrate with that. Whereas you can, with Furina C2, get to a point where you feel like it is valuable, but most of the time it's just making Furina do more damage by giving her more HP, and that's not really that relevant. I do wish I could just, you know, disable Furina C2 and directly, like, compare this with the exact same builds, exact same artifacts, so you could see what I'm talking about here, but the ultimate point is just a simple one of Furina C2 is a highly contextual constellation as far as how valuable it can be. and it can really only shine when you're trying to abuse it with the most non-ideal of healers, which is when you are making the team more fragile, and I think most players will not want to make the team that fragile because it just won't be that much more enjoyable of an experience. The damage increase you see will cause you to have to attempt the abyss more because you're just going to be dying more. That's basically what it is. But if you're someone who truly likes messing around with the combat of this game, maybe it might be something that's worth it to you. But again, if you're someone who, likes messing around with the combat of this game, you also probably really value getting new characters to mess around with more than new constellations. So, I don't know. Furina C2 operates in this weird middle ground where I'm glad it just isn't like a crazy, humongous DPS increase. Like, I actually kind of regret Nahida C2. So, I don't know. I digress, right? I'm not saying there's no reason to get Furina C2, but chances are you probably shouldn't get it. I like it for being something that is situational. I like that it doesn't crazily change the way Furina works at a baseline. So, I actually like how they designed the constellation. But for most players, it does nothing. It honestly does almost nothing. It's just not worth it. You will see much more value for Furina, like for her personal damage increase and for the team's damage increase from Furina C1 than you will from Furina C2. That's my generalized thoughts. Honestly, I could have probably just said that at the start of the video and, left it there. But I did this my own rambly way and showed it. Tried to demonstrate what I could in ways that it was fun and ways that it was fragile. Hopefully the message got through. It's good that Furina's getting a rerun. I just wanted to make this video because I think a lot of people might be considering getting Furina constellations with this rerun. Furina does 95% of the amazing things that Furina is good for and is a really strong character for with her C0 kit. And her C1 basically just makes her a bit better. And her C2 enables some goofiness you can do, but not in a way that is necessarily worth going for. But if you disagree, feel free to jump in the comments. We can all have our different opinions. Your opinion is the one that's correct, which also means that my opinion is correct, so you probably shouldn't get Furina C2. But if you do, have fun trying to abuse it.